Everybody ready?
Yep, sure.
We'll call to order the Benton County Board of Commissioners meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Note that all commissioners are here except for Commissioner Pop, and he's excused. Approve or amend the agenda, Monty?
We have no changes.
Board?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. County Board meetings are broadcasted live and video recorded on YouTube. Please refrain from speaking from the audience area and come to the podium so that the viewers can hear you. County Board observes Robert's Rules of Order for its meetings, so please obtain the board's chair's consent before addressing the County Board. Public comments are generally reserved for the open forum segment or public hearings. However, public comment on other agenda items may be allowed at the discretion of the board chair. As we begin today, please turn off the cell phones or turn them on to vibrate. Thank you. Beth, nothing on the open forum? Thank you. Consent agenda, what would we like to do with 1 through 10?
Move approval.
I am going,
Hold it.
okay.
We've got a motion, so we have to act on that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Further discussion. Commissioner Benoit?
I would like to pull consent item number 5 and consent item number 10 and abstain from 2.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to include those.
Also amend my second.
Thank you. Thank you, motion maker, seconder. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, Commissioner Benoit, number 5.
That one, I wasn't on the board when all of this came up, so just a brief explanation as to what that is.
Monty,
Sure. So 2024 was the first year of our 3-year class and comp maintenance program. So the county board entered an agreement with David Drown Associates to review a third of our classifications each year for possible reclassifications or market adjustments. And I believe those recommendations were presented last fall. Well, with any employee that's covered by a collective bargaining agreement, in order for you to implement those changes, you have to have an agreement, a negotiated agreement. And because we have contracts in place through the end of this year, you formalize that agreement through this document, a memorandum of agreement. So it's kind of an addition to or an amendment to the existing 3-year CBA. And basically the union says, okay, yeah, we agree to how you want to implement this, and the members vote on it, and then they sign off on it. So that's why this is on your agenda. And this is actually, we have 8 bargaining units, and this is the last one that we have an agreement with. So this will then have all of our groups settled.
Okay, thank you.
got your clarification on that?
I did.
Okay, we'll take number 10 too.
Number 10, I just know that we discussed some stuff in the cow on how to reduce costs at the sheriff's department.
Yes.
So I know this was brought up at our cow to try and see if there was other options to try and cut that back.
I agree, Commissioner Benoit. Did Commissioner Heinen, Commissioner Kapinski have an opportunity to meet with the sheriff about this?
No, we have not yet.
I see Troy has with
Troy-
us by go-to, just.
Troy, would you like to comment on that?
Certainly. So we routinely seek what the updated pricing is going to be for the coming year. This is the price that our food vendor is asking. I know that in preparation for the meeting with Commissioners Kapinski and Heinen, we have sought some additional bids to see what else is out there and how competitive this bid is. I don't have results of that. I do know that in the past, when we've gone out for bid, that Summit Foods has been has been very competitive and or they've been willing to match the other bids. A 3.8% increase, I think, is very reasonable given the times we live in, and it's the lowest one we've seen in several years. So I'd be willing to entertain any other questions that the board might have.
Mr. Chair, Sheriff, that 287,000 was, and I haven't done the math here, but is based on how many inmate population? Because I know you have a chart here that shows that it, obviously the price goes down the higher number of inmates we have. But what was that number based off of for inmate?
Yeah, I believe when I did the math on that, I figured an average daily population of 40, 35 or 40.
Okay. And right now, what's our current population?
It's been going in between 35 and 40.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Troy?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I do have one more. What's the timeline on this, Sheriff? I mean, the commissioners haven't met with you yet about this for some other possibilities. So do we have a strict timeline, or is there something we can hold off on a little bit?
So of course, awaiting Commissioner Hines' return, we discussed getting with these two board members and getting some dates today to have that first meeting. So
do we have time to hold off on this then, I guess is my
that's a question for Troy. What is the time frame to get this adopted? When does the current contract expire, by the way?
The current amendment expired on February 1st.
Okay.
If you'll permit, I can find the original agreement and find what our opt-out is. My suspicion is that we have the ability to terminate this amendment per the terms of the original agreement. I can, if you'll permit, I will see if I can find that quickly.
Yeah.
You can certainly table this and discuss it later in today's meeting if you wish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your poll. What would you like to do with it?
I'd like to table it till we have more information.
Okay.
Okay. Excuse me. So Commissioner Benoit, what would you like to do with number 5?
I'll make a motion
To approve.
to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then number 10, table it.
I'll let her, it's her.
Yeah,
item
I'll
again.
make a motion to table that till later in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I'll second that also.
Okay, got clarification on that? Everyone's okay with that? Okay, if not, I'll call that question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We'll be getting back to you, Troy. Okay, next up,
Very good. Thank you.
Monty. The next item is agenda is a public hearing to consider creating a local housing trust fund. Before opening the public hearing, we'll first hear from county staff. And
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Amanda if she could come to the podium and address this issue for you. You were kind of ready for this, weren't you?
Yes. I was. Figured I would be. Good morning,
morning.
County Board.
Morning.
I'd like to just kind of give you a little bit of background on establishing this local housing trust fund for the county. Essentially, the housing trust fund is going to be a permanent source of funding for continuing to meet some of our housing needs as it relates to when we established we established the housing study back in 2023, finalized that housing study, and there's a lot of information in that housing study that suggests that there's a huge housing need in the county. We identified a need of 3,800 units across the county. Part of that is implementing that housing study across the county, right? And one of those ways is to establish this local housing trust fund. And the whole local housing trust fund is essentially a tool to park some of the local housing aid dollars into so that we can utilize those funds for various different programming across the county. In addition, establishing the local housing trust fund allows us to leverage additional dollars from the state of Minnesota and other sources. For example, Minnesota Housing right now has an RFP out there for us to apply to leverage additional dollars. We can apply for up to $225,000. But the only caveat to that is that we have a tool at the county, such as our local housing trust fund, to park those funds, if you will. The housing trust fund really is a tool to establish different types of programming. So one of the programming options that we're proposing after the establishment of this housing trust fund is to create a revolving loan fund, a fix-up fund, if you will, for some of our existing housing stock. We know that our existing housing stock needs some work in their county. It's older, so that this housing trust fund is a tool to kind of help establish some of those programs, such as that fix-up fund, if you will. So part of establishing this ordinance, there's a couple different components to the ordinance itself. So obviously the purpose is that it parks those funds for us that we receive from the state of Minnesota. There's eligible activities that you can designate within the trust fund to utilize those funds for different programming. As I mentioned, we can make grants, we can make loans. It doesn't necessarily have to be for low-income project. It can be for market rate projects. It can be for a wide variety of different projects, so we can create programming for. The caveat to that is that we need to create a program, a policy, and an application, and that's identified within the Housing Trust Fund ordinance. Another caveat to establishing the Housing Trust Fund is that we have to have a dedicated source of funding for this particular ordinance. And the dedicated source of funding is a couple of different things that we have already established. The local housing aid dollars has been dedicated or allocated to BEP to manage that on behalf of the county, and those funds are in a separate account already and earning interest. They have been earning interest since the time that we've been securing those funds on behalf of the county. And our current balance in that local housing aid account is $468.31. And of course, that's with earning interest over the past couple of years. So that's a dedicated source of funding. Also, the investment earnings from that fund is considered a dedicated source of funding. So we must have a dedicated source of funding in order to establish the housing trust fund, okay? So those are our two dedicated sources. Other dedicated sources can come from local municipalities if they're doing projects in their city and they dedicate a portion of fees, if you will, to the trust fund. They can do that. We can have private investors dedicate source of private dollars into this trust fund. So really it is a tool for us to park additional dollars, whether it's private or public money, okay? The administration of the Housing Trust Fund, really, we have it identified here as the nonprofit administrator. BEP has been dedicated to provide the administration of the Housing Trust Fund and as well as the local housing, county's local housing aid dollars. And so we would be the ones, Benton Economic Partnership would be the ones to administer the Housing Trust Fund and any funds that go into this account. So we will be the ones administering specific programs authorized by the ordinance. Again, creating applications, programs, policies, and then determining the terms and conditions of repayments of the loans or the grants that we issue. So any projects that we work on utilizing these housing trust fund dollars, we'll have a program in place, we'll have an application in place, and will be the ones administering it on behalf of the county. So essentially, those are the nuts and bolts of creating this ordinance. Again, a tool for the county to park public and private dollars and leverage additional funding through the state and other, and federal apparently too as well. So I will open it up for questions if you have any.
At this time, we'll save that for the end. At this time, we'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience or online who wishes to address the county board on this agenda item? If so, please come to the podium and give us your name and your address. Anybody wishing to speak on this matter? Final call for anyone wishing to address the county board. Okay, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Are there any emails, letters, communications to be read into the record other than what you've already read?
No.
Has the department received any comments or concerns from any state agencies, cities, or townships on this agenda item?
No.
Thank you. Let's see. If any official action was required by an affected township, what was that action? And there was none, I'm assuming?
None.
Okay, county board now will have time for questions of staff and discussion. As a reminder to the audience, the public hearing portion is closed. Now we can open it up for questions.
Mr. Chair, a couple questions, Amanda. County board or EDA, which board is going to be helping manage this and making decisions?
It'll be the county board.
Okay. Also, if I'm understanding you correctly, the statewide affordable housing aid, those dollars year after year will go into this local trust fund?
It's already going into an account, a separate account, but it'll be facilitated and managed through the local housing aid.
And then I knew the 120,000 plus we had last year, and now I see the 25 certified aid is down to 50. What, do you know what the formula is, why that's so much less? Yeah, so it's gonna be all over the place.
It may be, and it's not certain whether or not the state is going to continue to dedicate local housing aid dollars to communities. But again, we do have to have a dedicated source of funding, and even though it is, even if that funding source is shut off, if you will, we still have the interest earnings from the account to consider it the dedicated source of revenue.
And then you'll treat that revolving loan fund like you do with the other, where the paperwork comes in, it gets reviewed, and we approve or deny it.
Essentially, we will work with a third party that will actually administer. They specialize in administering small loans like that.
Okay.
And so they have it already set up. We already have I have a draft policy in place.
Yep.
And an application, and I'll come to the county board with that information. And essentially, it'll be up to BEP to manage that once that policy and program and application is already in place.
Sure.
So I won't necessarily need to come to the county board for every loan.
Okay.
That will be,
That's what I
that
wanted
will
to
need to be
clarify, yeah.
administered.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Amanda?
I'm good.
I just got one comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you again for BEP stepping up on this. If not, we'd be figuring it out on our end or it not happening.
Right.
BEP has taken on a lot of things for us and
Yeah.
truly appreciate this too.
Thank you,
We're
Amanda.
happy to do so.
Okay,
All right, then with that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance establishing a local housing trust fund and directing its publication in the county official newspapers.
A second.
okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Amanda, for
Thank you.
doing this. Truly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll recess the county board meeting to conduct an Economic Development Authority, EDA meeting.
Might as well just stay up here then, huh?
You might as well just keep standing.
I'm gonna try to pull up a presentation real quick.
Mr. Chair, while she's getting ready, or do we want to do our housekeeping and the other stuff?
That is correct. So at this point in time, we'll have to select a chair and a vice chair for the EDA. And in the past, it's always been the chair and the vice chair of the board that is on this.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we nominate Commissioner Pop as the chair and Commissioner Heinen as the vice chair for the EDA for the 2025 calendar year.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Approve or amend the minutes of June 18, 2024 meeting.
Move approval.
Second. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Amanda, consider a microloan request.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We have a new microloan request from Odom Medical Group. Odom Medical Group is 100% owned by Dr. Robert Odom. He's been in business for 8 years. They operate as a primary care clinic. They are offering a bunch of different services. They're considered a rural health clinic. They offer primary services including acute care, routine, preventive care, chronic disease management, physical, behavioral, and mental health care for the community. They also operate, they currently operate out of 2 locations in Crystal and in St. Cloud, Minnesota. This will be their 3rd location in Foley, Minnesota. They offer mobile services, which is quite unique for a medical facility. They will be able to go out into our rural communities and offer medical care. They are proposing to build a brand-new clinic here in Foley, Minnesota, located at 700 Penn Street. This is the location. I don't know if I need to do anything for our online folks. I don't know if they can see this or if they need, but
I'd have to do a share screen inside GoToMeeting.
Okay.
So,
do we need?
do that if you'd like me to.
Sure.
Okay.
So the new location will be at 700 Penn Street. The construction of the building will be 1 floor, roughly 6,000 square feet. Oh, we could just leave it if that's fine, if that works for